Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Fantasy Fiends show, where we talk about everything fantasy and sci-fi related. I am Stevie Collier, and I am joined once again by my awesome best friend, co-author Andy Peliquin, and we have Eileen Mueller. Mueller. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say Miller because I'm a hillbilly.
Does your name have the umlauts over it or no?
So my name officially has umlauts when it's in, so it's MU umlaut, LLER. But when we came to New Zealand, they wouldn't recognise them. So we had to get our name changed by deed poll to Mueller. So it's Mueller. That's how you say it, Mueller. Anyway.
Yeah.
Mueller.
Or if you're not from New Zealand originally.
I'm a Kiwi. We've been through this, Stevie.
Right. I get so confused with everything. Well, because people from New Zealand sound like Eileen, and I get confused. Well, I don't know.
You've just got like me. You've got sometimers, right? Which sometimes the memory works. Sometimes
exactly. Yeah, mine is ADHD, which comes with its own set of anyway.
Sometimes rules. Yeah.
You ready for a ridiculous play on words, Stevie?
Yes.
80% of the time it doesn't work. Playing off the ADHD.
Homonyms. Yeah, we got it. Just took us a while to laugh.
I'm going to turn that into a shirt, unless you saw it on a shirt.
I didn't. I just made it up. But it's a terrible, terrible joke, so you shouldn't use it.
Hey,
I actually quite like it, so let's use it all the time and blame it on Andy.
That's like the worst dad joke Andy's ever made, and that's usually something I do.
Hey, now I have a bad joke. You have to wait, Stevie. Just hold your breath. Hang on a second. I've got to rejig my headset so I can do this properly. It may not work. I may not be able to get my hat on the right angle. This is my ringmaster's hat, but with a headset, it's not working. So pretend I'm wearing the hat. Are you ready?
Yes.
Happy birthday to you. Geburtstag, viel Glück. Tante goodie party. No fun, no kirkwe. Happy birthday, Stevie!
Whoa! Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. I totally forgot about my birthday.
Hey, Andy, where's the cake? You were supposed to bring cake.
Yeah, Andy.
It's in the email. It's on its way.
Thank you so much, guys.
That's going to be really tasty electronic cake. What flavor did you bake, Andy?
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
Gross.
That's great for people with ADHD.
Yeah, I want cockroach flavor. Well, thank you so much, Eileen. I was not expecting that. I wasn't. So thank you.
Well, I promised you I'd sing you happy birthday. You're just really lucky because my family get a verse in each language, so it takes 4 times as long. So whenever we sing happy birthday to anyone in our house, the kids all roll their eyes because they know their friends are going to have to put up with 4 verses of happy birthday from everyone.
Yeah. What other languages?
I was just going to say, did you realize there was, I don't remember which order I did them in. I think I started in English, right? And then there was Swiss German, Italian, and Maori, which is the indigenous language of New Zealand.
I did not know that they had an indigenous language.
Yeah,
do you speak that?
I did Maori for my school exams years ago, but when I went to Switzerland and learned Swiss German, it sort of displaced a lot of the Maori. So I understand smatterings, but I don't speak it fluently.
Swiss German. I would have thought you would have tried to learn I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. They also have an indigenous language in Switzerland called Romanish or Romansh, which is it sounds a little bit like Italian but different. Yeah, it's quite cool. But I don't speak that.
We don't live long enough because I would love to learn them all. I love languages so much. Like that's my absolute number one passion, hobby. So I would have loved to have done something with languages.
What do you speak?
I speak French and I'm taking Japanese 3 in August.
Oh, that's really cool. C'est joli for the French.
Oui, c'est joli, c'est joli. Très joli. Et les femmes adorent la langue.
You have a wonderful accent.
Thank you.
Wow, he's really good at languages, Andy.
You know what I did? I just made fun of French people. So when I listened to them, I was like, oh, bonjour, je m'appelle Stevie Collier. And then I just kind of toned it down. And I do the same for Japanese, but it just sounds more racist. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's funny, So I can speak Swiss German with a French accent.
Oh, what?
So I do it on purpose to be silly, I speak Swiss German, but with a French accent. So
you're so intelligent, you put an accent on a different language.
Well, I lived there for 6 years, so I had to speak every day. And Oh, so cute.
Yep, that's
that was
cute.
a great view. That's a really good view.
She's known for that on the show. If you're listening, my cat is showing a part of her that she shouldn't be. Well, thank you, Eileen. I appreciate the birthday wish. I'm turning 28 years old and 28.
Such a cute little boy.
28.
I know, 28. When we started, I thought Andy, wasn't I 23 when we started this show?
I don't think we've been on the air that long.
Okay, somewhere around there.
Maybe 25.
Yeah, 25. But it feels good. I got shin splints for the first time, so that was interesting.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
How did you get shin splints?
Just running outside. I thought I could hang, do whatever I could do when I was 16, but I guess not.
Yeah, I used to think that, and when I started falling off playgrounds at the age of, I sort of was told by someone that I probably shouldn't be going. I'm like, but I want to play with my kids, and they're like, what do the other mothers do when they go to the playground? I'm like, I have one friend that joins in, but all the others sit. That's why. So, yeah, it was when I came off the playground, came off a skateboard, and did something else all within 3 months, and ended up with injuries everywhere. It was like, well, I can't give up riding. Yeah, no.
Well, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Speaking of parenting, our subject for today is surviving rotten parents. Is this a personal thing or is this characters?
My parents weren't rotten.
Okay.
Actually, I had a mum that was my mum and dad split up when I was really young. So I had, I lived with my dad from the age of probably about 9 or 10, a couple of years where they were splitting up and not and things. But so growing up with a dad was really interesting as a girl. And there were 4 of us, 2 boys and 2 girls. And my mum was like the best buddy, hip, new age mum who was really cool. She hitchhiked all over New Zealand and traveled around the world on her own and abandoned us. I think it was really hard for her losing the kids. So she went off and traveled. And she was we always got along really well. She was like a best buddy. And my dad was the strict father from where, and I was never allowed to do anything until I basically moved out of home, which was really crazy. So he's different now. He looks back and says, I wish I'd parented you guys differently. He was so paranoid that we were all going to have all sorts of issues, so that he just he felt that being really strict was the way to manage it, but it didn't work.
And he was a Kiwi originally.
Yeah, they're both Kiwis.
Okay, they're both. And you said your parents weren't rotten, is what you said?
No, they weren't. They were both cool. My dad was just unreasonably strict. But him and I are really good buddies now, and we get along and we talk every day, and he's really cool. So, yeah, he was just really, really tough. So my parents were great, but somehow my characters have ended up with parents that might not have been that great. Some of them.
That's the tropes I've started with. I usually don't even give my characters parents. So it's kind of not like Jesus and Saint Mary. Not like that. A little bit different.
So just that they're not on the show, so to speak.
Did you just say Saint Mary?
I know, I was thinking that. Mother Mary.
Stevie, yeah, what kind of shitty Catholic are you? Saint Mary.
I thought Mary is a saint,
Catholic,
right?
If you're saying, well, she is.
It's Mary, Mother of God.
Yeah, I thought she was still a saint though in Catholicism, isn't she?
I have never once heard Saint Mary.
Yeah, but there's always a first time, Andy.
That is true. It could be some new aspect of Catholicism that I don't know.
Yeah, because
Stevie's developed. Yeah.
Yeah, because my school is called St. Mary's.
But St. Mary's is a college.
Maybe St. Mary Magdalene or something.
Maybe so. I don't know. I don't practice Catholicism. I just read the Bible. So I don't know. And I don't even think the word saint comes up in the Bible. We had Peter, who was the first pope, and then things got crazy and people got killed. But,
we're not reading from that book today.
Yeah,
Dang it.
This is actually an interesting question, sort of related to the story. I mean, to the topic today is: can you think of an epic fantasy where the hero has both parents? And I'm going to say we're both. There you go. Both parents are like halfway decent, because it's a really common trope for one parent to be dead, or for the parents to die in the Dark Lord's attack on the village, or for them to be raised by their uncle, or it's very, very uncommon to have both parents, and to have both parents well-adjusted. I wonder if heroes just can't have well-adjusted parents, they're made despite their parents, kind of thing.
Well, I did something different, because when I wrote Riders of Fire, and the first book's Azara is the main heroine, and I'll just grab her there so you can have a wee look at her, so you're not always just staring at us. Not that the guys aren't gorgeous, but so that's Azara. her parents, they are in a fully functional family. It was like I wanted them all to get along well, to support each other, to be cool parents. And that's how I wrote them. And they actually end up being heroes also in the book. But a lot of other people in the series don't have that. And also, of course, she disappears in the first chapter, and then you never see her parents until book 2. And by then there's a catastrophe and the parents having to split off and do things. So you don't actually get to see a lot of that relationship until later in the book. But I think my fans have quite enjoyed that they've actually seen a family that functions. I mean, I grew up in one that didn't. So I think that's partly my motivation. And goodness knows whether my current one does or not, but but yeah, so I don't know. So there's my series has that, but I'm trying to think about other series, because you usually orphan your main characters. Mine got orphaned by taking off on a dragon, and her parents lived in an area where dragons were forbidden. So yeah.
But the parents that you're talking about in your book are rotten.
No, those parents are good. Her parents are good.
Those parents are good.
But Roberto, who's a main character, had a terribly abusive father. So his father sold him. So the enemy in the entire series is Commander Zenz, who came through a world gate and is actually cloning monsters that are attacking the realm and enslaving people, and and kidnapping entire villages and killing people and taking them off to work in Death Valley. And you don't find out why until sort of book 3 and 4. So I can't give all that away. It's hard to talk about your series without all the spoilers. So, but his father was swayed by the enemy and actually gave his son to the enemy. So Roberto was a protege of Commander Zenz.
My God.
I think it's pretty easy for the villains or the antagonists to be like that. But I'd say let's focus on sort of the heroes that turn out good despite their parents.
Well, that's Roberto.
Yeah, he turns out good.
I can't actually say because it would be a spoiler, but yes, he does.
Okay, ultimately.
There's quite a lot of doubt in book 1 about who the villain is, whether it's him or someone else. So I probably just spoiled the series, but there you go. But yeah, so I think one of his main drivers is that he wants to prove that he is not his father. So any allusions to his father, there are people that hate him because of his father. His father has killed people and killed one of his best friend's wives, which comes out later on in the series. The father's done all sorts of stuff in the name of the enemy. And you sort of find out why and some of that motivation. And one of Roberto's big arcs is sort of trying to reconcile that throughout the entire series. So, yeah.
And Roberto is the main character?
He's one of the main characters. So him and Azara feature in the first story.
Okay. And we switch between perspectives.
Yeah, there's 40 perspectives in the first 3 books of my series.
40?
And by the time we
No way.
I know, that's what I thought. No, I went through Scrivener because they're all color coded, and I went through all, how you can set your perspectives. I thought, how many have I got? And then it gets to more because Sea Dragon, which is the book we've just launched now. I don't have a picture of Sea Dragon. I might better pop one up here. We'll pop one in the comments on Facebook. But Sea Dragon is a side story from someone who rescues Azara and Roberto in this book. She helps set them free. They get caught by assassins who would quite like to breed with the young master to create. There are a bunch of female assassins who kidnap men or they find men who are injured, heal them, and then they use them for breeding purposes. And Ithsa is the daughter of the head of the assassins, who's Ashiwa. And Ashiwa is the chief prophetess of the Rabandi assassins. And she hates men and she hates her daughter. So there we go. There's another parent. She hates her daughter because her daughter was born with deformed fingers and can't hold a sword. So she's a useless assassin. But unknown to her, she trains in secret without a weapon. She does all the moves and things and trains in secret and actually is quite proficient, even though her mother's never given her a chance. And in Sea Dragon, one of the things that comes out is the fact that Ithsa's been bullied and taunted all her life. But you actually find out that Ashiwa caused, and she thought that the bullies had turned her mother against her, but it ends up that you find out in Sea Dragon that the mother got the bullies to systematically destroy her daughter. So there you go. Loads of spoilers. Yeah, I ruined the whole series.
Wait, she died?
So when Sea Dragon crops up, you haven't seen Ithsa since book 1. the whole of the big series arc goes on until book 5, which is Dragon War. And then book 6, which is the final book, which is just launched last Friday, Ithsar turns up. And then, of course, I'm starting with a whole new character who lives in a different continent. So I needed more points of view. So we've ended up with more than 40 because I had to create all
that is insane.
It's just nuts.
And Andy, I feel like could, he was, if between us, if one of us is going to do more perspective, it's Andy. And then even Andy didn't even like it. Seriously.
I have the hardest time hopping between heads from chapter to chapter, and I'm too linear to write one character and then write another character like this. So it was just like it was 6 months of headache of doing that. So I was like, never again. I'm a one POV kind of guy now.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I thought like with ADHD, you'd be wanting to jump between the characters' heads, and you go,
that's Stevie.
That's me.
I got a whole different bundle of issues.
Mine is shiny object syndrome. So I start a series, I want to do another one. But
within
why
the first chapter. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's always nonstop. Like the other day I came up with a kid's book that I really want to write called oh my God, the batshit crazy adventures of Beetle Boy and Dingle Dog or something, but I can't say
batshit with a title like that.
I can't say batshit. So, but there's no other things that make sense. Bat crap. You can't do that either. But yeah. So I'm just constant. That's why I have a little notebook. I have a waterproof notebook in my shower, and yeah. And
how do you write on it?
It's like this. It's got this lead that kind of writes on the wet paper, and the paper is. It's a really unique invention. I'm sure it was easy for them to make, but it's super cool. And I go through one every two months probably.
You just have it in the shower, and you're wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. But I had to stop though because it made the shiny object syndrome so much worse. Because I'm just like, oh my God, it's a great idea. I could totally just take a break and write that right now. And no, I gotta stay focused. I'm the same with languages. So right now, Italian is just like everything to me. But I'm like, you got to finish Japanese 4, and then you got to become at least conversational before you move on to Italian, Stevie. Chill out.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's why I have 6 businesses, and I just have to keep pulling back. Like, come on, pull it down to 3. But it's frustrating. That's why there's no way I could do multiple perspectives. If you had a gun to my head,
it's really tempting to run off into every character's
so here's
emotional mental landscape. Yep.
Do you ever feel like whenever you move from one character to the next that the personality from the last blends with the first at some point?
I think I probably could have a stronger voice for some of the characters. I have quite a distinctive voice across everything when I write. And do you know Mike Myers, the editor of Grimdark? So him and I were talking about this, and but I think my fans have loved it. They absolutely love getting in everybody's heads, understanding how everybody works, seeing how someone's thinking this and someone's thinking this, and of course they don't match, and all the different politics and stuff that come because of that, the emotional crises and conflict. When I first wrote the novel, it was a head-hopping novel because I had no idea how to write, and it took me, as you know, I spoke about this last time, probably about 10 years to get my novel into the shape I was happy with it. And part of that was making the decision of whether I was going to keep all these different points of view. And when I tried to get rid of them, the story lost so much. It was so much less rich. So I really enjoy that. And I enjoy showing the motivation of each character and where they've come from and what shapes them. And, like Roberto mistrusts everybody with a father that has sold you to the enemy, and the enemy who has basically blackmailed and used you into using subversive mental talents on people. So that is what he would have to do, is kill people with his mind, or other people, or children would die, so it was pretty awful. I know this is a young adult friendly family.
I was going to ask, what is your target audience? Because I'm just like, and then you say a girl gets beaten up, but we don't know if she lives or dies. I'm like, even in my books, and I feel like mine is like 21 to 40. I don't even hurt women in those, really. I think that might be just my southernness. Like, it's hard for me to do that. But
it's nice.
That's a lie. I do hurt a few, but there's a boundary that I don't cross. Andy and I have talked about it before.
Whereas I'm female, so it's all people Do you know what I mean? And I think like
Mhm.
when Roberto gets kidnapped by those assassins and they want to, it's because it's young adult, they refer to the fact that they would like to use his seed and create more children.
Oh my
But that
God.
nothing actually happens, right? Because it's young adult. So the difference between young adult is the level, I think, that you go to. Like you can have something flit across the page and disappear, and it's quite a young thing, and you don't go anywhere with it. If we would actually carry out those threats, it would be a whole different genre that I don't want to write. So there's a threat there, and the threat is the impetus for the characters to get out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I remember someone saying to me, this is really dark. And I said, well, you read in a lot of young adult that women are caught and threatened with this. If we're going to have an equal opportunity society, like it seems really wrong to have it round the other way, but I thought there's nothing different in essence when you change the gender. It feels so different and so wrong, and yet that is what women live with every day when they walk out on the streets. I just felt that I don't know, does that make sense? Am I sounding really way out?
No, absolutely. It was something that I've thought about too as I was writing my Cerberus series. It's like all of my characters or all of the villains up until book 6 have been consistently like male bad guys just because of the world this guy's living in. So when I had a chance to put a female villain or antagonist in, it was like, all right, this is a chance to do that. And I didn't change the story in any, weird ways. In fact, it actually made it more interesting because it's like, it's a sniper. And in Russia in World War II, when snipers were first like becoming a formal part of the military, it was the women that were the best snipers. So actually changing that and using that, him going head to head with a female sniper changed the nature of the battle in a really interesting way. So it's like looking for those opportunities to see things from that, that different perspective, I think makes it more interesting.
And I think I remember hearing once that women were the worst snipers or the best because they had the least sympathy for the women and children. I thought that was awful at the time.
Whoa, wait, hold up.
When you,
What?
when
You're
you
joking.
push her when you push a female assassin past the boundaries of that usual motherhood, compassionate sort of role that women often have. I'm not saying everyone does. That you've pushed them beyond where the guys are often prepared to go. So that was really, Have you heard that as well, Andy?
I did, yes.
What are y'all reading?
I don't know. It was on the news years ago, and I remember going, "Oh no, how terrible!"
Oh my God! I feel like it's a rubber band that just snaps at some point. That's the way I'm. Oh my, Andy, don't you think about it? He's already thinking. He's like, I want to make a female sniper. I want to make a female sniper.
Done one. You said you've done one, right?
It was the one. It's basically the Nolan Garrett 2.0. She basically tried to break all of his records, and she was in the special forces like him, and so it was a fun sniper versus sniper battle.
Yeah, for the whole book.
No, you don't do that for the whole book. It was it was like 2 chapters. Or 2.5 chapters. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's like the whole first chapter is him analyzing his opponent, what he knows of her, analyzing the layout, analyzing the scene where she's trapped him, in this line of sight, like just basically mentally breaking down the entire encounter without making a single move. Like it was a whole chapter of that, because that's exactly what goes into a situation like this. Like people are like, you never go, glass to glass, scope to scope, unless you absolutely have to. And when it does, you better be sure. And so it was just sort of leading up to that moment of when he's actually getting ready to take the shot. It was a really, really interesting thing for me to research and then to write.
Yeah, it would have been amazing. And I mean, all of that happens in a sniper's head in a flash, but you have to convey all of that stuff on the page. It takes a long time.
So I've had this question. It's not about rotten parents, but it is on the same subject of writing women, which if you go back and watch the earlier episodes of the Fantasy Fiends podcast, I state multiple times that I'm scared to write my first female character. And then I discovered, after the help of, I think Rebecca Jonesy kind of gave me some advice. There was a few other people, maybe Savannah Goins, but they're just people. And that just clicked with me. But now that I've done that, and now I read these big tankish women, these characters they're like trying to make them tough. I feel like they give them these stereotypical like masculine traits. How do you make a woman like a woman warrior, a tough woman warrior, without doing that? Can you just have one that's regular who's also tough?
I just stopped thinking about masculine versus feminine. And I just think of
character.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like in the Cerberus prequel, there's a woman, Tanis, right? And she basically is, she's like your stereotypical guy in the sense that she makes fun of him, she treats him like an asshole, she's super strong, but there's nothing overly masculine about her. She's just as much a woman as some of the other characters. There's a stripper in the whole series, and she's obviously very feminine, but it's not like you would say, oh, this one is more woman and this one is less. So it's just two different aspects of the exact same, I would say, spectrum, or two different places on the spectrum of
personalities. It comes down to personalities. So a really good one for you to read would be Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, which is not indie, but she writes Celiana Sardathian, who's
that would have hurt me.
Yeah, she's an assassin, but she loves shopping. She loves luxury. She loves wearing nice clothes and lipstick and jewelry, but she is a kick-ass assassin who can sort of kill 30, 40 guys in a battle.
All she has is those two aspects. So I listened to the first book. I listened to the first book on audio. I think the second and the consecutive books got better. But in the first book, there is literally two aspects to Selena. Is the ass kicking, all of the cool assassin-y shit that she does. And then the loves books and pretty dresses and falling in love with the prince and the guardsman. Like that is, in the first book, it is literally all I heard. There was nothing else to her beyond those two things. And I think as the series went on and she became more experienced, the writing got a lot better and she became more complex. But when I first started, I was like,
yeah, she's pretty complex by the end of the last one. So
that's
it's about, so like with Roberto, my major thing when I'm writing his voice is distrust. He doesn't trust anyone except himself, because and his sister. He's been double crossed so many times. So they both have the same parents, right? They've got a father who killed the mother. He caused her with a back injury that she died from 2 or 3 months later while they were nursing her. He killed himself, and before that, he had sold them out to the enemy. He'd sold the brother out to the enemy, and then they got the sister out of the situation. So Adelina, his sister, is short, bubbly, 14, nearly 15 years old, I think. And her way of dealing with that betrayal and mistrust is to put on a bright, smiling face. So she is like bubbliness from wherever. She's out there, she's bubbly, she's like, I will put my past behind me. His way of dealing with it, he got a raw deal because he actually went and became a traitor and then sort of brought himself back from that. His dragon rescued him, which is how he got out of the situation. Bonded with a dragon who took him away. And he is mistrustful. He's suspicious. He's arrogant. He's cold. And those are all the things that characterize him as a way of dealing with the situation. So already within the same family, you've got two very different personalities dealing with the same set of parents in a different way. But within that family, both of those people are striving to be better than what their dad was, to not go there, to be a different person. Whereas there's another set of traitors, or there's quite a few in Azara, book 1. There's a guy who's been swayed by his parents who goes along with everything his parents do. So, there you've got but here I am giving away all the spoilers. And then we have Ithsar from Sea Dragon. I'll get a picture up on my phone in a second. But you've got Ithsar from Sea Dragon, who she's trying like crazy to be a really good assassin, despite her mother basically not wanting her around and wanting to finish her. So the premise of the book is she helps Azara and Roberto escape. Hang on, I'll just look up my downloads. It should be in there. She helps them escape, and they escape. There you go. There's the cover. So that's the Sea Dragon cover. I don't know. Whoops, wrong way. Where's my camera gone? Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I love the artwork.
Is that an illustration?
No, that's photo manipulation and 3D modeling and DAZ to create the dragon. So Christian Bentlin did that. I love working with him. Yeah, he's really
awesome to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. So and I really love the dragons he does. Like I've seen illustrated dragons and they're quite cool, but I really like mine. So Ithsar basically, she's battling against her mother, who, is full of hate and basically would rather she wasn't alive. So she helps the hero and heroine, Roberto and Azara, escape in book 1. And then she turns up in book 5 with a bunch of sea dragons. And the book Sea Dragon tells you where she went from book 1 to the end of the war, which is book 5. And then it adds in a couple of threads, which I deliberately left untied, and pulls the whole book like a big series roundup at the end and finishes it. So, and I tell you what, when I started writing this story, I thought, I've got this tiny little side story. How am I going to make this a great big culminating finale for the series? And even when it released, I was thinking, I think I did it. Don't worry, we'll get there. And my readers have come back and said, wow, this was amazing. It enriched everything. And I was like, phew, we made it. You never quite know until you get the book. Yeah. So it was really good.
So with the rotten parents, can we only have kids that come out rotten as well, or can we somehow have them fight against it? And once we find them as our hero, they're already good. I mean, they're going to have to face their own trials, but I feel like every author who writes a story with rotten parents, the main character is going to be rotten to a point, and then we're going to have some mentor to fix it.
Not necessarily fix it. It's more like the experience that they gain through their contact with others, or through their, through the adventures they go on. You don't necessarily like that. The mentor trope is something that's fairly antiquated. You don't need a mentor. You need friends. You need someone you can rely on. You need, you can take pretty much any young character, and no matter what kind of baggage they carry from their parents, as long as they're sort of moving forward, making positive choices, you get them where they need to go. I think the number one thing that leads to not only fictional characters, but real life people going rotten is just, either sort of wallowing or leaning into the baggage that they've got, or just being oblivious to it. When someone tells you, oh, this is what you're doing, they ignore it. It's something that happens with my teens all the time. I am obviously the font of wisdom, and they refuse to listen to my sage advice. And then, eventually it comes time when they fall on their asses, and, I can't say I told you so, because I'm trying to be
you can, but then you're a worse parent.
Exactly. So it's like, putting that into perspective. My kids are great people, but they're going to make mistakes. So now imagine with someone who has a much worse parent than I, and, like Roberto had a shit parent, but Roberto understands what he's got to do. And he may not see that he has trust issues right away, but then as his friends sort of help him realize this, I'm guessing that he kind of becomes a better person through it.
Yeah, he does. And I've sneaky, like when I first wrote him and took him to my critique group, I took an old manuscript to a critique group on a day where I just didn't have anything new, because I have other stuff I've written that hasn't been published yet. Because my critique group went, oh, the dragons are amazing, you've got to do this. And I'm like, nah, no one likes dragons except me. Anyway, they did, and the series has been popular, so I'm happy. But they said, this is the bad guy, right? Like, it's really too obvious that he is the major antagonist and he's the source of all evil for the book. And I went, oh, actually, he might not be. They went, oh, well, we really hate him right on the first page, so you've got to change something in there. So I had to give little tells that he had a good heart. So he does nice things on the way. Like, you get him bending over back, he's cold, arrogant, horrible, and then he does something nice. And I think that's one of the tells when you're developing a character, or even when you're trying to ascertain a person. There can be people with crappy behavior who actually have hearts of gold. They just need to learn stuff, and they need to move through their baggage. And I think that's the same with some of our characters too. So whatever Stevie's original question was, I've forgotten now. Because I remember I was going to talk about Ashiwa with that too, because Ashiwa is an evil parent. Itzar's her daughter, but Itzar has a really good heart right from the get-go. So Roberto has to go through a transformation. We've got some other people in book 1 who just don't ever go through that transformation.
Ashiwa has rotten parents, but is automatically good.
He is the rotten parent.
Yeah, Ashiwa is the rotten mother. Sorry, I said it around the wrong way. So Ashiwa is the rotten mother, but Itzar just has a heart of gold. She had a dad that loved her, that the mother executed in front of her.
Oh, good.
Which is pretty awful. Well, they only wanted men for children, and he didn't produce anything but boys, which were, cast out into the desert to die, and a girl with deformed fingers, so he was useless. He had to go.
So you're like the Game of Thrones author for young adults who like dragons.
Yeah, and there's not. I mean, I read Game of Thrones years ago because I was told to read it as part of a writing class,
Oh
and I
wow.
got through book one, and I was like, oh no, this is awful. I could never go there. This is just terrible.
And here
And now
you
I'm-
are.
No, I'm not. I'm not that fast.
I'm guessing dismemberment is where you don't cross the line.
Well, there's a bit of no, I don't do any of that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I
Or
don't.
incest or any of that stuff that he has in book one. It's just like,
Oh
nah.
God, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, or throwing children from tops of towers. No, we don't go
Oh,
there. There was quite a bit in that book that made me. But since then, I have critiqued for horror and thriller writers, so I think maybe I've gotten a little bit of influence in there.
Thicker skin.
But generally my books, there's a bit of battle violence, there's a bit of stuff in there, but it generally keeps. They've got a really hopeful. Hopeful, is that the right word?
I think so.
Help me there, need a thesaurus. They've got a really
Hopeful, right?
upbeat, yeah, and they have happy endings, and with a big cliffhanger, not a cliffhanger, but just a teaser for the next. Something terrible happens at the end of each book to hook you into the next one. But yeah,
Who would you suggest read your books?
I've had a 9-year-old read my books.
Oh wow.
And I had someone write to me who's over 100.
Oh
I've had
wow.
men, women, teens, everybody in between. So I think the main thing that appeals to them is a lot of people read them because they love dragons. Some people read them because they love kick butt heroines. The sort of really, really, really analytical, nerdy type, let's pick a hole in every single plot and list all the characters. And they don't tend to, they go, nah, because book one, there's this and this. But a lot of that gets explained in book 2 and developed in book 3. So, yeah, there's a lot of threads I leave untied that pull through to the other books, and I've done that deliberately. But I get some people going, none of this tied up. So some of them aren't quite as happy, but everybody else seems to like them. So yeah.
Awesome. Well,
if you like dragons, if you like epic adventure, lots of action and adventure. Like I don't do big, long, boring descriptions and sitting around having meetings for chapters on end. It's not my style. I love action, so I think you guys are the same, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Speaking of action, we should get to the reading because we are running out of time. We're having so much fun talking about this stuff.
And singing for Stevie. We won't repeat on that.
All right. So as far as I can tell, there is Ithsar, there is Ashwar, and that's it, right? Oh, Bala.
You've got a few guards and things in there too. So just let me open the part I sent you. I've got the whole book open. So what's happened is some guards have guards. So Ithsar has helped Roberto and Azara escape in book 1. So at the beginning of Sea Dragon, it recaps that. In the prologue, you get those same chapters again. So you caught up to speed with where we're at. And then Ithsar thinks she's escaped. She's hauled before Ashawar, and they discover that Isoldia, who is her a bully and her mentor, that Ithsar has sort of framed Isoldia for helping them escape at the end of the last book. And she feels terrible because Isoldia is whipped and left out in the hot sun. And then so she sneaks in to heal Isoldia late at night where no one can see her. She gives her this healing elixir and fixes her back because she has this terrible, terrible feeling that, oh my goodness, I've caused my enemy to be whipped and be lashed and left in the sun. So she sneaks in and heals her. And also she was given a punishment because she wasn't there helping at the scene of the escape because she'd actually hidden herself and gone off afterwards. So she is given a punishment where she has to dance the Sathiri dance, which is a series of 30 killing movements. And she has to dance that basically from late morning right through until the middle of the night where she actually collapses from exhaustion. And this scene is the next morning. So the guards come in and haul her off to visit to the throne room where Ashawar is sitting there.
All right. So who do you want to read, Eileen? Or do you want to read the narrator? What's your preference?
I'll do Isoldia.
All right.
No, Isoldia. I'll do Ithsar. Is that cool?
Okay. Yeah. Stevie, do you want to do the narration and I'll do the other voices?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Are there any male voices or are they all variation? They're all females.
They're all female here. We're in the female assassin.
All right.
Do I start at the yellow?
Right at the top.
Yeah, that's probably good. So we've already got her. She's coming already.
Oh.
She's coming already, and her mother. Maybe we start on the page just before where it says Ashawar set her elbows. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Why don't we just start at the top of the page? Treason. We got enough time, I think.
Okay.
Cool. Go for it.
All right, so this is treason, and what book is this? So people know.
Sea Dragon.
Sea Dragon.
Writes 5
Okay.
book 6.
So treason in the book Sea Dragon. The heavy trump of guards woke Ithzar. Am I saying that right? Ithzar.
Yeah, Ithzar.
Ithzar. It didn't bode well, but she wasn't expecting much after yesterday. Thicka slithered out from under the blanket and scampered up the wall to the low rocky ceiling of her alcove. Thicka's throat puffed in a brave show defiance as he angled his head toward the doorway. Then the lizard pressed himself flat into a crevice, one of his favorite hidey holes, his orange and brown striped hide blending with the sandstone. Ithzar closed her eyes again, pretending to sleep. Guards stopped outside her curtain and flung it open. One of them strode in and shook her shoulder roughly. Still clothed in her robes, Ithzar rolled to face them and sat up. A moment later, Thut's saber was at her throat. The guard hauled Ithzar outside. Others grabbed her upper arms and hauled her, like a criminal, along the corridor to the throne room. Ithzar didn't bother asking what they wanted her for. There was no point. Thut thrust the heavy doors open and pushed Ithzar inside. Gods, her muscles still ached. She was still shaky. If Drita and Roshni hadn't fed her, her legs would have collapsed. As it was, Ithzar stumbled into the cavern, but regained her footing and straightened her spine. With fiery eyes burning like the Rabandi sun, Ashawar, sitting on her grotesque throne, raked her gaze over Ithzar. Behind her throne.
Just 1 second. The
Sure.
throne is carved from the bones of their victims and has all these grotesque killing poses.
Cool. Cool. Good imagery there. Really shows the rotten parent in her.
Yeah.
Behind her throne, her guards were arrayed like vultures on a dead branch. Drita and Roshni among them, faces harsh and shadowed in the flickering torchlight. Ithzar met her mother's fiery stare without flinching, without apology. Ashawar set her elbows on the arms of her throne and steepled her fingers.
On the night the strangers escaped, I saw a purple bruise of Sathir staining the sky around them, and the palms swayed violently in the breeze. One of those palms dropped a cluster of date right onto Isoldia's head. I wonder what caused that. Magic from the strangers? Or someone closer to home?
Oh gods, her mother knew, or suspected.
But no, there is no one here with that sort of skill.
Ashawar continued, her eyes never leaving Ithzar's face.
I must consider this an act of war from the north. Soon we must strike back at those Draco-Reiter and their worm-scaled beasts. But first, I've to deal with you, an heiress who sleeps through a vicious attack on my guards by our enemies. Once you are dealt with, we'll ride to war and slay those Draco-Reiter in their sleep.
Ithzar had really messed things up. Instead of saving Azara and Roberto, she'd consigned them to a war against the bloodthirstiest assassins. The doors thunked open, making the guards twitch. Isoldia was in the doorway, her huge frame rigid with tension. Bala rapidly gestured to her. Isoldia's posture softened, and a grin broke out on her face. Then Isoldia stalked across the tiles to stand in front of Ashwar's throne.
My revered chief prophetess, seer of all, and the ultimate wise one, I have reason to believe your heiress is plotting against you. She wishes to murder you.
No!
The cry broke from Ithzar before she could check herself. Ashawar waved Ithzar to silence.
Does she now?
Bala piped up.
Last night I heard the weakling mutter something about killing you, right before she collapsed.
No, I didn't!
Ithzar cried.
You weren't even there. It was Thut that was on duty when I fainted.
Fainted, did you? Not a good trait in an heir.
Ashwar's eyes flashed as hard as a diamond.
Bala, take witnesses and search her quarters.
Bala bowed, thumping her hand on her chest, and then exited the throne room, taking two other guards with her as witnesses. Ithzar breathed a quiet sigh of relief. There was nothing in her alcove that could incriminate her, nothing except Thicka. She swallowed. She hadn't thought of bringing her friend with her.
My most revered and wise chief prophetess, please, let me explain.
Isoldia's words died as Ashwar waved her to silence. Good. Isolde's fawning attitude rubbed Ithzar's scales the wrong way. Ashwar rose from her throne with the grace of a feline predator. Her feet slipped across the tiled floor. Noiselessly, she glided between Ithzar and Isolde, her quick eyes measuring every breath, every twitch of a muscle, every heartbeat. She stalked, circling them both. Ithzar's heart thundered as her mother's icy gaze slid over her. She lowered her eyes, staring at her dirty toes on the clean tiles.
Isolde, you appear to be in remarkably good health after just being lashed.
Isolde preened, meeting Ashwar's gaze.
My rapid healing is a sign of the gods' approval, my revered chief prophetess.
Isolde inclined her head and gave a deep bow.
I took each lash with pleasure, knowing you had so bestowed them upon me. However, the gods have seen fit to heal me while I slept.
As quick as a rust viper, Ashwar sprang, slitting Isolde's robe with her knife. The collective sharp intake of breath from the gathered guards ricocheted like a scream in Ithzar's ears. Her heart raced like a herd of camels, their hooves thundering inside her chest. Ashwar's eyes narrowed.
Bring a torch,
the chief prophetess hissed. A guard sprang into action, fetching a flaming brand.
Bend,
Ashwar snapped, kicking Isolde in the back of the legs. The guard fell to her knees on the tiles, bowing her back. A crisscrossed mash of thin, red scars gleamed on her healed flesh. Ithzar let her eyebrows shoot up in surprise, staring like the rest of the assassins. Ashwar spun, her sword aflash in the torchlight as it sliced toward Ithzar. Ithzar dropped into a defensive crouch, ready to roll, raising her arms to block the blow, her sleeves sliding down her arms. Ashwar's sword stopped a hand's breadth short of Ithzar. Her mother's control was impeccable. What had she been trying to prove? Ashwar's cackle bounced off the walls, reverberating around the throne room, making the hairs on Ithzar's neck rise. Then her mother's glittering gaze landed on Ithzar's healed fingers, outstretched before her face. Her mother's glare made something inside Ithzar curl up and die like a stray plant out of the shade. Ashwar sheathed her sword, her eyes never leaving those fingers. Surely now her mother would rejoice that she was healed. Ithzar sprang to her feet, smiling.
Mother,
Her smile froze as her mother sneered.
So you've been healed too? I wonder how that happened.
Although her mother's words sounded harmless, the venom of hundreds of rust vipers laced her words, sending icy trickles of fear through Ithzar's bones.
Very cool.
Very nice. Yeah, that was very... I forgot how good of a writer you are, Eileen. You're not forgettable. I was just, wow.
you.
It's really good. Yeah, I could see you as someone who could write multiple characters.
Yeah, the next section is actually from Ashawar's perspective. So it's all about how the runt of a girl, what had happened to her. I forgot to mention that Azara bought this healing juice. I have this wonderful healing elixir in my story, which of course becomes scarce, which becomes an issue. But Azara actually healed Ithzar's fingers when Ithzar was feeding her. Ithzar was the slave girl that basically went to feed her while she was captured. So she healed her fingers. So Ithzar finally thinks she has a chance to prove she can be an assassin to her mother, but that will be thwarted. Yeah.
Can you explain what a rust viper is?
It's a snake that lives in the Rabundi Desert.
Okay, but you made it up.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't know if they exist. I never found one. Yeah,
it sounds like your classic Australian, or the kind of snakes you hear about in Australia. Just a mean piece of shit.
Yeah, but we don't have snakes here. So, I think when I decided to write the Rabundi, the Rabundi assassins, they live in the wastelands, which somewhere on my map down there is an orange tip at the bottom. So when people are banished from Dragon's Realm, they get sent to the wastelands, and they usually don't survive because either the assassins get you, or the snakes or the scorpions do, or the lack of water. So that's what they do with their traders. They ship them off and leave them there in the desert, which is how Roberto... Oh, no, too many. No, we won't go there. Too many spoilers.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil it any more than it already has. Well, I guess we are running out of time. So, Eileen, why don't you tell people where to find this awesome story? And all
EileenMuellerAuthor.com is where I have my free book. So we'll put a link, and you guys will put a link down later. I'll send you some links.
Stevie definitely will.
Yep.
Oh,
so
yeah.
EileenMuellerAuthor.com. I'm on Amazon. All my books are in KU. I have a really cool box set out at the moment. If you want to catch up on books 1 to 3, that's 99 cents for the box set, or you can read them in Kindle Unlimited. And this is book 6. And what I was just going to say before is when I was writing the desert scenes, I was trying to use a lot of desert imagery, which therefore means, creating that world in a realistic way too. So anyway, thank you very much, guys. It's been great to be on the show.
Yes.
Thank you for joining
us.
Thank you.
Again. It's always a pleasure. Yeah. And before we leave, I have to ask, and I don't think I asked this last time, is your hair real or is that a wig? Because I think it's real.
Yeah, it's real.
Oh,
Stevie, you asked this last time too.
I gotta ask because, and then as soon as I ask, and I remember asking it last time. Now, I saw you, Eileen, at 20 books to 50K, and you were like posing and stuff, and now I'm like, oh, there's no way the wig would have stayed on, because I saw you taking pictures with either your fans or friends, and I'm like, oh, she seems fun. She seems fun.
So Eileen,
I'm really sad. I'm not going to see you guys there because of COVID-19. Our airline has cancelled all international flights except for repatriating people and bringing them home. And I was so excited to be hanging out with you guys and partying and with Jeff and Eric.
For sure.
I don't even know if they're going to have it. Are they?
It's still on.
It looks like it's going ahead. Craig's been making a lot of noises about, about forging through. I don't know what you might not be able to pose with fans. You might have to pose at arm's length or something. It's going to be really weird to have a conference of 1,500 people and trying to keep things safe. But yeah, I don't know. You guys are in the States. We're really lucky here. We got rid of COVID. It's come back because people are coming into the country, bringing it in.
Oh, it came back?
We haven't had much community transmission, but as people are coming home, they're getting tested, and some people are coming up with it. So
it can't be that many to exterminate them. It'd be that joke sounded horrible. I did not mean it as bad as it came out.
He meant the disease, not the people.
Good rotten parent.
I did not mean the parents or oh Jesus. Well, on that note, it's not a Fantasy Fiends show if I don't ruin it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you did the reading so well.
Thank you. I was stuttering there for a minute, but when a story's really well written, I get through it better. But I think it was Rebecca who called it like I have a reader's vocabulary, so I don't pronounce things as they should be because I just know what they, I love that.
You read them and you understand them. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, Eileen, thank you so much for being on the air with us again.
Thanks for hosting me. And I'll catch you guys another time and have lots of fun in Vegas without me.
Oh, well, we always enjoy having our Kiwi on air with us. So, Eileen, thanks again. And we will see you next week for another awesome episode of the Fantasy Fiends.
Actually, officially Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific time, which is 9 Eastern time, we are doing our first live episode of the Deranged and Questing podcast. The Necromancer's Idiot Apprentice goes live. And now, if you watch them afterwards, you will enjoy them and have a ton of fun. But if you watch them live, you will actually be able to directly influence the outcome of the game. So people, if you can join us live, you will be able to actually direct our actions in the game, which I will explain to you on Monday when we go live. So it is going to be, honestly, the game, we've had 4 test episodes and it has been absolute insanely ridiculous fun. And so we're super excited to bring it live on the air and have you all join us for the Necromancer's Idiot Apprentice quest.
Now, just before you sign off, one more time for Stevie. Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really do. It's been a crazy 2020, but it feels good to be 20. I feel so much wiser. Just go watch episode 1 of the Fantasy Fiends and you'll know what I'm talking about. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for all the birthday wishes. We will be back next week. Remember to tune in on Monday, where again, you can control part of the show as well, which is going to be super fun. Anything Fantasy Fiends is fun. You know that shit.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Love you all. See you next week.
Catch you soon.
Woo!